So
So they bought that, it was already up and running, and
they were running it, and I don't, but maybe he still had flying in the back of his mind or something like that, because that's when he was interested in going to work for United. And he did go to work for United, and they moved to California. And this is in the early 50s, you know, I can't remember exactly. I can't tell you it was 1951 or 2 or...
52. I was born in 49.
You were born in 49. And
Yeah, Bobby was born in 52.
52 or 51?
Oh, 51. You're right.
Yeah, I think it was
And
51.
in 52,
And
we moved to California.
yeah, and he, when Bobby was born, you know, we went down here to see Bobby, you know,
Yeah.
like we did as you when you were born. We went to see the new baby, and they were living down in this rental down here, and I was young, and I wasn't. I mean, there could have been conversations around about health conditions and that kind of stuff, but in 1951, I would have been 9, so it wasn't something that I either wasn't included in on, or I wasn't interested in, or didn't know anything about. You know, and I like seeing the new baby and stuff like that, and but when they. I guess when they realized that there was a problem, he wasn't developing, they had placed him in a home in southeast part of Provo. And this is probably not in his first year, maybe his second year, something like that. But because in the beginning, I don't think we were aware that there was any kind of problem. You know, I mean, babies don't do that much stuff in the beginning anyway. You know, they let you know when they want to be changed or when they want food or something. But he wasn't at that home very long. The next time he was moved to South Fork at Provo Canyon. When you go up Provo Canyon, you go in Vivian Park, and the canyon behind that is called South Fork of Provo, and he was in a home up there, and we would just I would just go with my parents, and we would hold him and talk to him, and he would respond. You know, he'd laugh, and his eyes would get bright and stuff like that. That as far as I know, that he never tried to, he might have made a noise or something, but he never tried to communicate or anything. I think he could hold his head up maybe a little bit. He was strong enough that he could hold his body up a little bit, but he was... we would just hold him and talk to him and give him hugs and just get responses from him, and that's about all. But Ken and Bonnie had moved to California by then, and he was still up here when they moved, and I think, thinking back, and this could be different. I don't know. You'd have to talk to them about their side, but I think they were just getting themselves moved and finding a place for him down there. You know, I don't think he was up here too long, maybe a year or something before they moved him. Maybe it was less than a year. I don't know. But there wasn't a lot that they could do for Bobby back in those days. You know, I have Bobby's death certificate. Porterville. Cause of death was pneumonia.
I think that's
I don't know if you knew that or not. I guess he wasn't very well fed, whatever. But down below, there's a couple other comments. You can see this. Under operation and autopsy, no operation performed under that. And over here, and autopsy check one, it has, it's checked, says autopsy performed, gross findings used in determining above stated causes of death due to an infection, prenatal bacterial infection. So, I mean, you can, you know, because Michelle was interested in it, I had got this a few months ago. I think it's dated in
County.
February when I got that from the state of California.
They were
He
living,
had an infection in utero.
they were living in Fremont
That's what,
then?
that's what is.
The,
Ken was in Fremont?
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
long ways from Porterville.
And he was in Porterville.
Yeah, it's 240 miles.
Yeah, Porterville is quite a ways from Fremont and the Bay Area.
Yeah.
But it looked like they did some kind of investigation and determined it was a bacterial infection.
His first name was
And
actually
I don't think we
Five
had
brothers, none of them
antibiotics
had
in
first
1951,
name.
52
All of them rebelled against their
along there. I don't know if they had been,
For the pneumonia.
But the sisters did.
yeah.
I don't know.
Two sisters did, and
I-
all five brothers.
So I don't know if they didn't have anything or didn't was afraid to give or something. I don't know. That's
Thank you for
only.
tracking this down and getting.
So I don't know a whole lot about Bobby, but he was a sweet spirit. Seemed, the way he responded to us, from what I remember, he was happy. He's smiley and his eyes would light up and stuff like that. But and of course I never saw him after they moved him to California. So I from what the situation was when I last saw him, I don't know if he ever walked or talked or anything like that. Probably not, is my guess, but I don't know that for sure. It was just kind of sad. He was, he grew physically. He got a little bigger, but he didn't develop mentally.
Did you see how it affected Ken and Bonnie?
They didn't talk about it a lot, but I think it was so difficult that they couldn't, that kind of thing. I mean, he was their son. I went, when I was 11, Ken got me an airline ticket and flew me down there. And they talked about it, Bobby, and he was in Porterville and doing okay, but I think that it was just really sad, really hard for him. I really believe that. It wasn't just something that they put him somewhere and forgot about him. I don't think it was like that at all.
Because our dad, when we were growing up, my memory is he didn't hardly ever say anything. He didn't say much. He was a very, very quiet man.
Yeah.
He'd go to work, and he'd come home, and he'd go to the library, and he'd come home with a stack of history books about World War II, like this. And 2 weeks later, he'd turn those in and get a new stack. He'd come home and read. He was just he was a real hobbyist. If he was into reading, my gosh, he was a reader. If he was into photography, wow, he went all the way into photography. And if he was,
You did.
and he painted and things like that. But it was always like this, like
One thing at a time.
one thing at a time. And he took us to baseball, got me involved in baseball and things, Little League baseball and stuff. But he didn't seem to have a whole lot to talk about.
That's where you get it. It's from your Uncle Ken. When Don was growing up, he loved to read. We always read in the house. But he would go to the used bookstore and buy the big brown paper bag full of books, read that in a few days, and take them back and come home with a different new. He was always reading. He loved to read. But, you know, it sounds like Ken was that way too. He just liked to read and very intelligent and wanted to know about stuff. Well, and his job at United Airlines was to know everything. At least this is what I was told. You know, maybe you know more. But his job was to know everything there is to know about a 747 engine. That was his project. That was what.
Yep.
That was his life. That's what he did. He had to know, and the way he reads, you know, that makes sense. That he would. That's what he did. He knew. Do you agree with that?
Take them apart and put them back together and
And
fix them if there was.
and
recognize
know what
if there
happens
was a
when this
problem.
happens and
Yep.
how to fix it and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when 747s were new, and he told me a lot about them. He said the engine is 8 feet in diameter, about here. And I think he started, as I understand it, he started at United as a mechanic, and he ended up being what he called. I said, "What do you do? What's your title?" And he said, "Procedure planner." I think it was more description than a title, but he wrote the manual on how to maintain this engine. So,
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that was the kind of detailed guy that he wanted to know about everything,
Yeah.
and that was his project. So,
And then his last several years there, he was learning how to use a personal computer when they were really
Yes.
horrible to work with.
They were brand new, and he would just spend the whole weekend studying those manuals
oh,
on computers
Yeah.
because he had to. He had to.
yeah.
He had one of those, I remember he brought one home. He had one at the house, but it wasn't that popular to have a PC.
I do not remember. Well, yeah, I do remember him having one in the office.
Yeah, they were brand new. PCs were brand new. And very, very underpowered. A few kilobits of memory.
And then done it right up the road from y'all.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. It came from not far away.
A garage in Santa Clara, I think.
Yeah, that was Apple.
Yeah.